Hello teachers, hello parents, hello co-admins, administrators of Kaagapay Teacher Support. Magandang hapon po sa ating lahat, no. So for today, we're very glad to have this session. Kasi ito ay isang session no na hindi na talagang sosuporta sa ating mga guro. Kasi alam naman natin no, isa sa pinaka importante ring aspeto ng distance learning ay yung cooperation ng ating ng mga magulang ng homeschool collaboration, no. So siguro Teacher Pao, no, ano yung what can our parents, no, at can our teachers expect for today? Ano ba yung mga makukuha natin para sa araw na 'to? Very
Okay. Yes, I'm very sure that the parents and the teachers alike will be able to gain a lot of knowledge on how to handle our students right now who has been very challenged, no, na balancing life, work, school, all at the same time. So medyo challenge talaga yon. So we are looking forward to our speaker who will help us, no, strike a balance of all these.
Yes, and alam ni rin Sir Jello din tsaka alam nating lahat na itong speaker natin for today ay talagang highly qualified, highly experienced. At in terms of like kung siguro kung may pinag-uusapan natin ang parenting at ay isa siya talagang may kakayahan at may karapatang magsalita, no. So we're really glad to have her. Actually, ano 'to 'no, talagang nagbakasakali lang tayo siyempre kasi napaka-busy po na tao ng ating speaker for today, no? And she enthusiastically and willingly accepted our invitation to be able to share with our parents, with our teachers today. So let's not take so much time in this introduction. Let's now have introduce our speaker for today. Sir Jambi, would you like to do the honor to introduce our speaker for today?
Sure, Sir Franco. Ayan, so mga kaagapay, our esteemed speaker for this afternoon graduated from the de Manila University, BS Mathematics, Summa Cum Laude. She also received a master's degree in counseling psychology and a doctorate degree in clinical psychology from the same university, where she presently is full professor. A licensed psychologist, she writes the All in the Family column for the Philippine Daily Inquirer and has authored books on math, popular science, education, parenting, family and teen issues, mental health, family businesses, and inspirational stories. She also used to host the TV show Fun with Math on PTV4. She also headed Ateneo teams that studied the best practices of Filipino public and private school achievers and the media and gadget habits of Filipino youth. A board member, speaker, and consultant for schools, the government, civic groups, and family businesses, she also consults for the Department of Education and the Department of Science and Technology, and sits on boards of businesses and the academe. During the pandemic, she has conducted several webinars for students, parents, teachers, civic groups, and businesses on online teaching and learning, resilience and mental health, math and science, best practices of family businesses, and financial literacy, among others. She has garnered various recognition, including the 10 Outstanding Young Men, the Outstanding Women in the Nation's Service, the Metrobank Foundation Outstanding Teachers, DOST's Great Men and Women of Science, the Outstanding Young Scientists, the National Book Awards, the Carlos Palanca, and the Catholic Mass Media Awards. She was featured in Asia Incorporated magazine's Who's Hot in Asia and the Singapore Heritage Center's Southeast Asian Personalities of Chinese Descent. She also became the first person to receive the Third World Academy of Sciences Regional Prize for Public Understanding of Science for East Asia, Southeast Asia, and the Pacific region. And for 2 years running, she has been voted the most legendary teacher by the Ateneo students themselves. Dear teachers, parents, mga kaagapay, Dr. Queena Lee-Chua.
Salamat, Jambi. Good afternoon, everyone. Definitely, I cannot say no. Tawag ko rin kay Mr. Franco. Actually, hanggang ngayon, Mr. Adon pa rin yung tawag ko. Kasi si Mr. Adon was the social science teacher of my son, Scott, when he was in grade 7. So, Actually, he was one of my son's favorite teachers. And in PTC, I actually went to see him just to say how much my son loved his class. Yan lang. Alam ko, nakakatawang PTC yan, pero yun talaga nangyari. And then I was actually very happy to see that si Pao Mendoza nandito rin. Kasi kilala ko si Pao. Okay? Pao and I have worked together on many things. And I'm also happy to meet for the first time, Jello and Jambi. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. I will now start. And Mr. Adun, hindi ko talaga makapakuha Mr. Franco. Mr. Adun will start showing the slides for me. So it's managing distance learning. So basically, management strategies for distance learning, a guide for parents. Medyo pang parents talaga to. But this will also help teachers. But I really made it para my focus would be parents. So for the teachers, you can actually use some of the recommendations when you have issues with parents. So next slide. These are actually the underlying issues. So ang problema kasi sa atin, akala natin ako everything is due to the pandemic. But learning is something which starts very early, and except if your child is in preschool, most of the time, dapat, meron ng kaunting strategy sana before that. But even before the pandemic, these are already happening. So many children cannot learn independently. Okay? Kung hindi nila kaya, they go to their teacher, di ba? And consult their teacher. Hindi eh. Maraming beses, tutor ka agad eh. And yung tutor, okay naman, pero minsan the tutors make the children dependent. Okay? So they give them the answers rather than helping them do habits and the strategy. So, of course, there's lack of solid study habits. Ay nako, alam natin nangyayari ito, distractions and gadget abuse today. And parent-child conflict over discipline. The parent wants the child to focus on online learning and the kid is not. Poor family communication, mental and emotional health issues. So lahat to, these are all happening even before the pandemic. The bad thing is, if these were not resolved beforehand, this becomes worse now. So lalala ang lahat ng mga ito ngayon. Ang dami namin nakikitang nangyayari ito for all levels. So mental health afflicts definitely. Akala namin noon it only afflicts high school and college. Wow, ngayon, mental health, you actually have mental health issues as early as, I think, primary school. Meron na. Okay? And then yung inability to learn independently, akala namin mga hanggang grade 2, grade 3, dapat kung high school, makaka-independent ka na. Hindi pa rin. Minsan mga estudyante sa kolehiyo, hindi pa rin makakayo. They still cannot do it on their own. So if these were not addressed, and sadly, majority of the issues for many students have not been addressed, that is why there is a lot of panic. There is a lot of problems now. So we'll take many of these one by one. The most important thing, actually, is the most urgent thing would be mental and emotional health. So I'll do that first. Next slide. I have to do this first because this, this is the one which is sometimes a life or death matter. Okay? So yung mga may quotation marks, these are real questions that parents ask in my webinars. So galing sa mga parents to, from public and private schools. So natatakot sila, how do we handle anxiety, depression? How do we help our children's mental health? Nakakatakot ngayon yung daigdig, how can we parent our kids? We are so stressed out. So are our kids. What do we do? Nakakaawa itong magulang na to. Pero totoo yan. So kung stress out ka na, what do you do? Next slide. The suggestions will be, we cannot avoid stress. And I keep on telling people, a little bit of fear is normal in the pandemic. Bakit normal? Because we are uncertain. We don't know what's going to happen. Will the vaccine work? Will this get? And because things are not certain, it is natural for us to be anxious. So, yung sasabi ko sa mga estudyante ko, in college, I said, just because you're a little bit anxious does not mean that there's anything wrong with you. Kasi minsan they fall victim, they label themselves, tapos nagpapanik sila. So, parents, very important. Okay? I know many parents, you're worried. You're worried about your jobs. You're worried about your children. You're worried about the country. You're worried about many things. But Worrying does not help. I repeat, worrying does not help. So if you worry a lot, your children will catch it. Ang daming nagsusubong sa akin ng mga estudyante, okay, na dapat sila okay naman daw, pero yung nanay nila sobrang lagi natatakot, umiiyak araw-araw. That actually harms the entire family. So because we are adults, even if we are worried, we have to calm ourselves and calm our children. How do we do it? So how do we calm ourselves? Let us avoid obsessing over things beyond our control. Okay, so sometimes, sometimes politics either disappoints us in some way or, other ways. Sabi ko, what can we really do, diba? So rather than focusing on things or ranting on things we cannot do, we have to focus on what we can do. That will lessen the anxiety. Okay, so what can we do? We can brainstorm on space and routine. Ito lagi sinasabi ko sa lahat ng tao, this pandemic, for those of us who are lucky to be working or studying from home, and studying from home is for every child. No school has opened. So, I told the children, if you're lucky enough that you have, pwede na yung Wi-Fi mo, okay, you actually should be honing your skills. This is a good time for you to hone your skills. Or you can help frontliners or just bond with each other. Okay, so rather than rant in social media about things that we cannot control, which is no good for our mental health, let us focus on what we can do. And this is very important. Fact check chain messages. Kaya nga wala akong social media. Lahat ng kaibigan ko meron. Ayaw ko kasi 90% of what's on Viber is actually fake news. Okay? And it's not that people really want to do it because friends do it, because people, many times, they do it out of good intentions. They're worried about their friends, so they post it on Viber not knowing it is actually fake news. So there's nothing I can do if I look at Viber, di ba? Huwag na lang. And ako, medyo confident ako. Sabi ko, buong buhay ko, wala akong social media. I don't miss out on anything. Kasi marami naman akong kaibigan. Yung mga kailangan kong malaman, like si Mr. Adun, he was inviting me, so he emailed me. It's easier kaysa social media, di ba? So yung mga importante sa akin, nalalaman ko naman. Yung mga hindi ko kailangan malaman, I actually don't need to know because I have to take care of my mental health also. Diba? So, ganun din tayo. Very important. If you have severe anxiety and severe depression, you need to seek professional help. Parents, my college students tell me, for every parenting talk I give, I have to tell you this. So this is coming from my students. My students say, many times their parents have depression or anxiety or whatever, but their parents are in denial and do not want to seek help. Parents, please, okay, it's no good if you're trying to be strong because mental health is really a sickness. There's no stigma in it. It's like a physical sickness, except it's mental. There are doctors who can help. Why do you have to suffer so much and very likely help your family, make your family suffer also if you can actually seek professional help? So please seek professional help, okay? And keep things in perspective. Sabi ko to sa mga bata. Sabi ko sa mga bata, ang problema kasi, kayo, you're always focusing inward. You're always in your head. Sabi ko sa mga bata, you think the world revolves around you. Hindi. Yung buong mundo, hindi ka talaga sa gitna ng mundo. All the social media might think you are yung mga ganito, but you're not. You're not. So, lots of research shows that people who focus on themselves actually have less mental health. That actually the healthiest people are actually those who are serving other people. They actually don't really have time to focus too much on themselves in that way. But I'm not saying that you should be a martyr and burn out. Iba na yan. You should also take care of yourselves. But if you have a purpose, okay, like yung nangyayari ngayon, yung ginagawa ni Mr. Adun, yung team niya, okay, this has purpose. So the four of them, they know every week when they host this, that there's a purpose to their life. So this is something that keeps them, their mentally healthy. This is something that gives purpose to them. So let us find our purpose. And parents, please help your children find their purpose in life, which very likely is going to be serving others. It's not going to be anything serving the self. Next slide. So yung mental health pa, how about anxiety? Yung medyo mindfulness ngayon, di ba? Yung bywords. Let's deep, once you're getting a panic attack, you really have to breathe. So breathe deeply. Look at worries in alternative ways. Exercise, walk, and other. Alam mo ito, alam natin, pero hindi natin ginagawa. Ngayon, ang daming, I just finished giving a webinar to medical doctors and they tell me they're very worried. Ophthalmologists are saying that so many children are going to them with eye problems. Of course, because everybody is on screen. Tapos even yung chiropractor, nakakatawa to. The chiropractor is saying that they have patients with back problems as young as grade 3. Sabi ko, you must be kidding me. Pero yun daw. So, parents, kailangan mag-physical exercise yung mga bata. Kailangan yan. There's no such thing as wala silang panahon. Walang batang nag-aaral 24/7. Sana meron, pero wala. Okay, so what's the best way to do it? You have to schedule a time for exercise for your child, and even better, schedule an exercise time for the whole family. One public school family I know, I gave a webinar to them, actually, through Skype, of all things. So Skype sila. Ang nagkwento sila, kasi maliit lang, yung dalawang kwarto lang yung nila. Tapos natatakot silang lumabas kasi raw baka maraming cases. So ang ginagawa ng buong pamilya, nakakatuwa to, they dance. So masayaw sila after class. So the family just dances. And that's physical exercise. It makes them laugh. It makes them happy. So importante yung physical exercise. Seek nature. This is so important. My next slide will show you nature. Connect with others face-to-face. So what we're doing now, or voice-to-voice. Ayan, thank you, Mr. Adun. This is the next slide, and look at it. No, if we look at this slide, diba? This is one of my favorite slides, and screen lang to. What happens to our body is immediately, if you really just look at it, your blood pressure goes down. Diba? You start feeling more calm. And that is only on screen. Okay, so think about what you can do if you walk in the neighborhood. Of course, have a mask. If you bike around in the neighborhood, okay, just have some sun. It actually lifts depression. It actually decreases anxiety. You don't need medication for that. Thank you, Mr. Adun. Can we go back to the original slide? I'll just finish ayan. And then, limit, alam natin lahat to. Okay? Yung gaming, medyo nakakatakot ngayon. I have more slides on this one. Sleep. We all know we have to get at least 7 hours. Many of my students tell me this. Sabi nila, Ma'am, I sleep from midnight to 12 noon. Ganun na yung buhay nila ngayon. And sometimes they miss class. Okay? And they tell me, but Ma'am, when I wake up, pagod pa rin ako. So, hindi lang yung quantity. So, sabi ko sa mga bata, yes, you are in bed for 12 hours. But what do you really get 12 hours sleep? Well, of course, alam natin, hindi naman. Kasi kung meron silang ping yung cellphone nila, they'll wake up, they'll have to look at it, and go back to sleep, So even if they think they have the quantity, they don't have the quality of sleep. Parents, what you can do for mental health and also for learning and also for distance learning, also for your work, this is so, so, so important. Deep sleep and at least 7 hours sleep. Please tell your children and kayo rin, turn off the gadgets 1 hour before bed. Whatever the brand of your gadget, whether it's the expensive one or the not so expensive one, it has the light, the blue light of the gadget. Even if sometimes the light you see is white, it's still called blue light. Okay, interferes with melatonin. Melatonin is the sleep hormone. Okay, so this is one of the scariest things today. And seek support from friends, even from pets. And again, professional help if needed. Next slide. And then the slide after that. And then after this one. Okay. So, bibilisan ko na to. Social media and depression. This one is, nandito, there's a dopamine rush. Social media kasi is addictive eh. Okay, so if we indulge in social media, the high is a high. The high we get if we get a message is exactly the same high in the brain as we get when you do alcohol or nicotine or everything else. When you do drugs, it's the same. The brain does not care whether it is a high from social media or gaming or it is a high from substances. So it's the same thing. And pwede lang sana kung, addiction lang. Pero lots and lots of research shows social media is linked to depression. And parents, bakit depression? Kasi akala ng mga bata, especially if you have a daughter, this is worse for females. So if your daughter is a preteen or a teen all the way up to college, they're very susceptible and to comparing themselves with other people on social media. They think everybody's life is perfect except them. Then they go into anxiety and depression. So parents, I'm not saying you should not do social media, but I'm saying you should not be addicted to it. So do a little bit, only use it only for positive things, use it only as necessary, okay? And you should be fine. Next slide. Is also something worrisome. So for the one, ito naman, studies show 10:1, 10 boys to every 1 girl. Okay, so internet gaming disorder is also the same thing. When I give talks on gaming disorder, lagi nako, yung tinatanong nila, nako, addicted na, anong gagawin ko? Alam mo, I'm hoping hindi naman talaga addicted yung anak ninyo. Pero ang sabi ng mga doktor, kung talagang addicted, ibig sabihin, hindi talaga nila kaya hindi mag-gaming. Na kung tanggalin mo yung screen, sisigaw, magtatantrum, mahihimata yung ganon. According to the doctors, the only way out, if your son is really addicted, will be for you to seek help from an addiction specialist. Your son has to undergo rehab. Ganun na, withdrawal. It is going to be a bit painful. Okay, but I think hindi naman yata, hopefully, addicted talaga. Kung hindi naman addicted, there's still many ways you can do. I'm not saying you should not play games. When I was in high school, I was the Pac-Man and Space Invaders champion, and I know all the games today. So I can play, but I'm not addicted. Okay. Next slide would be also, the World Health Organization is extremely worried because all around the world, this is happening. So talagang especially for kids, and this is interfering with their learning. This one, you can actually go to the WHO website, and this is for free. So ang daming problema. Next slide. I just want to say something kasi bago to, natatakot ako, and yung estudyante ko, I'm talking to them and they told me this is happening. So the WHO is actually warning all parents now and all teachers that online games today, aside from being, beautifully done, immersive and highly addictive, also have gambling-like elements. So sabi na estudyante ko, meron daw yung mga loot boxes. So nakakatakot na minsan yung mga gaming na yun kasi pera na yung kinukuha. For you to go to the next level, for you to unlock this key, for you to be able to get this sword, you need loot boxes, may pera na yan. Be very careful. Okay, so ibang klase na yung nangyayari ngayon. So parents, just when your child is playing a game, please ensure you know what the game really entails. Next slide. And then if you're worried about this one now, we actually just wrote this book for parents who want to know warning signs, what to do, what to say, including suicide, self-harm, etc. It's actually, this one is available on Anvil, and if those of you who have an ebook, it's actually available on Amazon, okay, and Google Play, and Apple. Next slide. So now, medyo tinapos ko na yung mental health. I just have to finish that kasi that one is life-threatening. Let's now go to other suggestions. So structure is essential. Okay? So akala ng mga bata that, they need willpower. Mom, I can only learn. I have to force myself to learn. Alam mo, you cannot force yourself to learn. Learning is a habit. Okay? So I tell my students, you don't wake up and say, oh, should I attend class today? Sabi ko, noon, externally imposed structures, kahit ayaw nilang pumunta ng klase, pumapasok rin sila. Ngayon, kasi nasa bahay sila, kung wala sila sa mood, hindi na sila papasok. O di sila makikinig. Or makikinig sila, akala natin nakikinig sila, akala ng mga guro nakikinig sila, pero 10 yung windows nakabukas, and parang ang ganda ng mukha nila, or it's not even live, and then they're actually playing games while the teacher thinks they're online. So learning is not something you do when you are in the mood, because for some people, they will never be in the mood. So it is a habit. So I tell my students, and you can tell your children, that you don't wake up saying, oh, should I brush my teeth today? You don't. You just automatically do it. So learning is also like that. So importante talaga habits. Next slide. And Next one, environment at home. Ito na, how do we encourage our child to exercise? She is on screen the whole day. She keeps rubbing her eyes. Of course, she keeps on rubbing her eyes. Masakit yung mata niya, eye strain. How do we keep our children away from YouTube and Instagram and make them focus when it's school time? Ito talaga ang problema ng mga magulang ngayon. Okay, next slide. Make motivation a habit. Yan yun, di ba? It has to be a habit. Now, what do we mean by a habit? Okay, you have to discuss a doable routine. So kung habit, ibig sabihin talagang brainstorm, umupo kayo as a family, okay, you have 3 kids, grade 1, grade 6, grade 10, ayan. So you tell them, okay, anak, we only have, 1 or 2 computers, how do we do this? Yan na. Okay, so which do we prioritize? So there has to be give and take. There has to be space for each. I understand that many of you do not have big houses. Very few people have big houses. So I tell my students, you actually can work and you can study in the same room as long as you have earphones. Sabi ko sa estudyante ko, bakit ngayon? Kasi they're complaining, maingay daw sa bahay. Kasi raw, isa nag-complain, hakawa. Sinabi niya, ang ingay-ingay na nanay ko. Kasi nag-zoom daw siya for her office. Sabi ko, your mother is working. Sabi ko, you cannot make her not Zoom. Sabi ko noon, you were in school, there are 40 of you in class, ang ingay-ingay, you managed to work. Ngayon, isa lang yung kasama mo. Sabi ko, mag-headphone ka, ano ba yan, di ba? So, somehow right now, I don't understand why children think, and some parents actually think, each child needs a room. My gosh, that's almost impossible. So, our children need to be able to manage distractions. That's also what I'm going to talk about later. They cannot avoid distractions. Okay, they cannot run away from distractions. So the distraction is there, work around it. And then do time for each one, eat dinner together. Environment is not ideal. The pandemic is not ideal, but you should actually brainstorm on strategies that can work for your own family. Next slide. And this is the manage distractions, okay? My students are saying, again, ang dami nilang sumbong, that yung parents nila are very strict with them about the gadgets, but their parents themselves violate all the rules. So sabi na isang estudyante ko, my mother said that when we are having dinner, there should be no gadgets. Okay? But she's the one who actually has her cell phone on the table. So parents, children imitate what we do. So if we have rules for them, we should actually also follow as much as we can the same rules, or else they will not listen to us. We lose credibility with them. Teachers, it's the same thing. Okay? So I tell my students, your biggest problem is procrastination. Nako, lahat ng eskwelahan na kinausap ko, lahat ng complaint ng mga guro, grabe raw, their kids are not meeting deadlines, whatever. So this is what I tell them, even my own classes in college, even my best classes. Sabi ko, guys, you don't like it if I procrastinate. If I give the test paper a little bit late, you don't like it. Sabi ko, fine. So I won't procrastinate. But at the same time, you also should not procrastinate. So same thing. So yun yung sinasabi ko talaga sa mga estudyante ko. And if teachers, if you explain it in that way, parents, if you explain it in that way, you can think of your own example for procrastination. Actually, mababait naman talaga. Most kids are mababait. I wish I can say all, but most children, mababait. Okay? If they feel it is fair, yan yun. They want, mga batang yun, they want fairness. Okay? Then they will comply. They don't like it if you impose and then you break your own rule. Yun. Next slide. And this is, several more strategies is actually here in our book, if you want. This is an Ateneo survey. And we talk with more than 600 of the top. So if you guys want to know the secrets of getting into Ateneo, well, it's here. Okay. Next one. And for those of you with problems on social media, gaming addiction, we interviewed more than 200 students, some of them from Xavier School, Ateneo, Miriam, with their names there and their family. So they have real life strategies on what they do. Next slide. Okay, ito yung sabi ng DepEd. Okay, per day screen time. Kindergarten, 1 hour. Imagine, grade 12, only 4 hours. Medyo natatawa ako dito because I know no school complies. Everybody goes overtime. Okay, so, but DepEd wants this because this is actually also what the doctors say. So now you're thinking, ano ba yan? You know, yung high school student ko, magpa 4 hours lang buong araw. What I tell parents is most learning is done offline, not online, offline. So if DepEd says 4 hours online, there should be maybe another 4 hours for your child to do the math exercises, to do the English homework, to read the Filipino sanaysay, to to look at history offline. So it should not be that every single minute your child is on the screen. That's why ang daming problema ngayon. So your child is on screen for activities that require live classes, exams, mga ganon, or their LMS, Canvas, Google Meet, or Google Classroom, ganon. Pero for the rest of the time, for their own mental health, for their own physical health, they should actually be reading a physical book. They should actually be reading a printed paper rather than screen lahat. Next slide. Yan na. For simple tasks, you can do online. For complex material, a book chapter, etc., print out to study offline. Okay? So if your child says they need Wi-Fi on all the time, that is not true. Because online classes are just basically 4 hours. So the other times, they're just doing things they shouldn't really be doing. And they keep on saying that they're doing research. Alam mo yung research ngayon? Google yan. It's seconds to do research. So they don't need like 6 to 10 hours to do research. Iba na yung ginagawa nila, nagma-mindless surfing na yun. So for online, we need you preserve your eyesight for live classes, videos, and tests. And I tell my students, I don't, of course, most people don't follow, but I say it anyway. Reserve non-academic online activities for the weekend. So binging on Netflix kung pwede on the weekend, Twitter on the weekend, etc. Next slide. Discipline, ito. How do I instill discipline in my 11-year-old? This concern also applies to my son in college. Medyo nakakaiyak to kasi yung son nasa kolehiyo na, wala pa rin disiplina, di ba? And when I emailed this parent back, I said, it's harder to deal with your son because if your son is 20 years old and your son still has no discipline, I said, your son, you just have to brainstorm ways for your son to be able to impose some discipline in his life now. And meron din, this one is from a private school. How can I oversee if my child gusto niya maging self-sufficient without me going into helicopter parenting? Helicopter parenting would be, alam natin yun, di ba? Parang helicopter, yung parang lagi nating sinusubaybayan yung mga bata and we do everything for them and lots of research shows this actually harms them. It doesn't make them grow. And should I hire a tutor? Honestly, no. If you can, parents are the best tutors. Next slide. So, lots and lots of studies show that parents are the best tutors. But let's just talk with discipline. I think your parents of different levels, I'll go through everything. For 1 to 7 years, in psychology, we call it the age of regulation. Make it very clear to the child what to do. Anak, ito yung gawin mo. Anak, ito yung schedule mo. Follow this, follow that. Because you are the adult and you're the one who regulates. Okay? 8 to 12 years, you cannot already regulate kasi may isip na rin sila. Diba? So, you have to be good role models. This is the age of imitation. This is when yan na yung nagko-complain sila. Diba? Doon, bata pa sila, you tell them, anak, gawin mo, baka gagawin nila. Pero kung mas matanda na sila, gawin mo, sabihin na, bakit? Bakit, mommy, hindi mo ginagawa? So you have to be a good role model. For example, with gadgets. This is a lot harder, high school, age of inspiration. Hindi na lang regulation, daring imitation. You have to inspire. Okay? You have to tell them, anak, why should you do this? How I do this for teachers, okay, is I actually have real life stories of my former students. So I talk about Rosel Ambubuyog, who is blind, and I know Rosel very well. So, so parang I will tell them, alam mo, ito yung ginagawa ni Rosel, ito yung ganyan. Or I talk about Martin Villanueva, I talk about Chris Tew, he's a basketball player, pero ang galing niya, he's very humble, he's very religious. So I inspire them. You want to get them bibo na. So if they're inspired and they are tuning into you, they will actually be ready to listen to what you have to say. Okay? And they will be, and lahat, of course, yung mga kwento ko, lahat may disiplina yan, diba? Ba't pa ako magkwento ng mga walang disiplina? So, yung inspired, alam mo, si ganito, si Leah Andanar, she's Miss International, pero alam mo, ang galing yan sa math, kasi she's seated in front. So, dami kong kwento, yan. And the students love that. Okay? The students love that. I actually have no idea how I inspired my son, but I think I probably also just made cuento with my son on, maybe my best student, I think. Or maybe he was also inspired by teachers like Mr. Adun. I don't know. But I'm, alam ko is, kasi parang, our son, we kinda ensured that he had the good habits early on. So, medyo madali kasi may habit siya. So, I don't really have to monitor him. But for my students, those who need to be inspired, then, open communication is essential. Open and honest communication. Next slide. And I tell students growth rather than grades. Ito, kahit sa anong eskwela, minsan, ang taas-taas na nga ng mga grades natin ngayon, sobrang grade inflation sa bansa, actually sa mundo. But, we also, Father Ben Nebres is the national scientist. He's also the longest serving president of Ateneo. And he says this to all our students. An A is okay, but if you focus on A, just for the A, it paralyzes you. You give up, you avoid challenges. Sobra kang takot because you're so afraid to fail. And parents and teachers, I'm so sorry to say, I see this happening in our best students, whether it's in public or private schools. They are so scared of making a mistake in class. Look at the way that they speak. Diba? When they speak, even some young teachers, they also speak that way. When they speak, lahat, kahit na statement siya, parang siyang question. Ma'am, the answer is 4? Na ganun sila. Sabi ko, why? Natatakot sila. Natatakot talaga. They hedge their bets. And that is so sad. They're so young. Why are they so scared and anxious? Next slide. Einstein. Anyone who has never made a mistake has never tried anything new. So I tell my students, making mistakes is the only way you can grow. Make a mistake and learn from it. Kung pwede, don't make the same mistake. But the first mistake you make, totally okay. Okay. Next one. Next slide. And again, it's the habit. Parents are the best tutors. Okay? Lagi ko sinasabi yan. Anak ninyo yan eh. Kung wala kayong pasyensya sa anak ninyo, do you really think may pasyensya yung ibang tao? I mean, that's your own child. But, support your children's efforts. Don't do the work for them. And then if they have issues, consult the teacher and the counselor. But whenever I say this, they say, we don't have time. Nag-aaway kami. Anak ko, ang dami-daming actually excuses. So I also wrote about that. Who are the best tutors is also in one of the books. So in case you are, in case you're interested. Many of my top students say that their parents are their tutors. Okay. Next slide. Ateneo allowed me to share this in public. So I actually speak directly to college students. So this one is given last August to the freshmen, and this one was given. This is Rosel Ambubuyog, by the way. So I talk about her. Okay. So this is on the Ateneo. You can go to LS1, Loyola Schools 1. It's somewhere there. And you can access it. So many of the learning strategies for the children, for the parents, if you want. And this is really for college. It's very applicable to college, high school, and middle school. Okay, so the learning strategies I'm talking about here. Next slide. Study hard and study smart. Sabi ng mga estudyante ko, Mom, we study so much. Why is it we still don't do well? Sabi ko, kasi nga eh. Effort is not enough. You also have to study smart. For instance, begin with subjects you have difficulty with. This is something which is not instinctive. Most of our students, they will start and only study the subjects that they like. The subjects that they don't like, they'll never study, and they will just study it or cram it, and they get more, anxious, and it becomes worse. So study smart means there are certain strategies. Begin with subjects you have difficulty with. Focus on what you don't know. Ayan. And multitasking does not work. So there's I can even, it doesn't work. You think that you can do 3 things at once. Studies show the three things, you think that you're saving time, but you're not. The quality of all three things goes down. It's better to do things sequentially, one at a time. Next slide. Ayan. And then many of the strategies are actually, this is my latest book. This was done for online and offline schooling. Many of the parent issues that I'm talking about today are actually here because, you know, they wanted me to do something on online. The parents were clamoring for strategies on online learning. Next slide. At the bottom line, okay, for all of us to manage the strategies, raise your children to have grit, so passion and perseverance and gratitude. Let's tell our kids the pandemic is really bad, but let's not focus on our burdens. Let's focus on our blessings. Okay? One of the blessings is we can actually still learn online. That is a big blessing. And to make the most of what they already have. And I think this is almost my last slide. And my last slide will be, the last one is, before I do this, my last one supposedly would be a quote from Mahatma Gandhi, which would be, the only way to heal yourself is to heal other people. The only way you can really manage your own learning is also to have higher purpose about why you're going to learn. The only way you can really manage your work, the only way for you to be calm inside when the whole world is so nakakaikot-ikot would be, okay, nanay ako, ang dami kong ginagawa, pero mahal ko ang anak ko. So gagawin ko lahat to and I will be calm. It's actually a mental thing. So you structure your environment, you do the habits, you keep calm, you know your purpose. That is actually the secret to practically all management strategies. So that's it, and we have time for questions. Thank you, and God bless.
Yan, thank you po. Maraming salamat, Dr. Queena, no. I think my co-admins would agree, no, na very short pa lang 'yun, ano, pero sobrang dami nating nakuha, sobrang siksik, liglig nga, no, pero siguro mas admins, Dr. Queena, maraming salamat po by the way sa lahat po ng input niyo for today. And siguro will be entertaining some questions now and comments from our audience. Actually, medyo madami ng questions kanina. Kaya lang, parents, teachers, na please, paki-repost po yung mga questions nyo kasi natabunan na po sila. Kasi mabilis pong umaakit at gumagalaw ang ating live chat. So, hindi po namin ma-entertain. No? So, please, do repost no, your questions. Okay? Admins, maybe you have questions while we're waiting for our audience to post their questions. Ako, meron po ako, Dr. Queen, na questions. No? Yeah, based on my conversations with some teachers and parents, no, isa sa pinakamalaking concern, although kanina, alam ko pa nabanggit nyo kanina, pero baka lang mas pwede nating i-emphasize, where do we actually draw the line? Yung, to the extent, saan ako mag-draw ng line dun sa extent na tutulong ako or pababayaan ko na yung aking anak para ma-develop yung independent learning? Kasi, ako rin personally, Dr. Queen, bilang isang magulang din, kasi meron din akong grade 1, dalawang grade 1 po, twins. And meron din ako mga ganung pagkakataon na hanggang saan ako tutulong. Pero hindi ako tutulong sa sobrang tulong naman na hindi ko sila matuturuang maging independent learners. So nasan po kaya yung line na yun at how do we determine that?
That's actually a very good question. There is no one right answer. But the best way to answer it would be to give you illustrations. For instance, yung grade 1, what psychologists call developmentally appropriate. So kung grade 1, it is actually very appropriate for them to be able to, say, tie their shoelaces. Diba, Mr. Adon? So kunwari, grade 1, dapat kaya na nila yung shoelace. So kahit na matagal, kahit na ang pangit, kahit na yung knot nila mali or whatever, we let them do it until by practice they can do it. So you let them struggle for a while, you show them the correct way, hindi nyo makukuha yun, then you do it again. For grade 1, you do not expect them to be able to do computer online class at once. That one talagang hindi kaya ng grade 1, I think, independent. So kung yung ganun, you can actually scaffold. So it depends actually on the task. So developmentally, Okay, so parang, there's certain things that for this age, we also instinctively know, dapat kaya ng bata. Pero, yung mga sobrang mataas pa, wag na muna. Tayo na medyo gumawa. For any age, for instance, there's no way we're going to let our 10-year-old drive, diba? Even if we want to make them independent. Impossible, diba? So, driving is going to be for 18 years old. Pero sana naman, by 30 years old, they can drive na, diba? Hindi pa yung tatay nila di ba yung ganun na? So, it depends on the task. It also depends on yun. For the school, kasi yung ano ko talaga, when we go back to learning, what really disturbs me is, yung sa time natin, o ang bata mo kasi Mr. Adun lahat kayo bata, si Jello, si Jambi, si Pao. So, hindi ko alam kung sino yung, ako kasi I'm past 50. So, in my time, in ICA, okay, where Pao teaches, no one has a tutor. None. The tutor of the class was me. I actually would tutor my classmates afterwards, before we go to Voltes 5. I remember that, may ganun kami. So, ako yung nag-tutor. Nobody has a tutor. And lahat kami okay kami. So, gulat kami ngayon, bakit yung mga bata kailangan mag-tutor? So, that's already something like, even tutoring. For me, it is actually okay to tutor with certain subjects. For instance, if Mr. Adun, you teach in Xavier, okay? Yung bata, hindi siya Filipino-Chinese, di ba? Di siya Chinoy. Tapos walang alam talaga yung nanay-tatay sa Chinese. So of course, hindi sila makakaturo, hindi sila makakatutor. So that one, it is very much okay to get a Chinese tutor. That makes sense. But what really makes me so disappointed, not only in Xavier, but in every school, is that the students complain they have tutors for every subject. Ano ba yan? Diba? Ano ba yan? Tutors for CLE. CLE. May isa pa nga, may tutor sa PE. Sabi ko, ano ba yan? So, grabe na. Sobra na. So, that's the kind of thing na hindi na ano. I will also say something na nakakatawa. Nako, I think nandito yung anak ko, pero sabihin ko na, hindi siya magalit to. So this is a secret. Matatawa si Mr. Adun. Okay? Ito yung example ko na I let him be independent and I let him make his mistake. I remember grade 3 or grade 4, I forgot. Okay, I never looked at my son's. Basta wala. I trust him. So he was just making kwento na, Mom, okay, tomorrow, we're going to have our periodical exam week. Final exam week. We're going to have a final exam in CLE yata. CLE yata sabi. Sabi ko, okay. So do you want me to review you? Yung pag-review namin, ayaw ko nga tingnan buong CLE niya, di ba? So, hihiga kami, tapos sasabihin ko sa kanya, tell me everything you know. Tapos marami siyang sasabihin. Tapos kung nakinig ko, parang tama naman, alam na niya. Tapos na, ganun lang ginagawa namin. Okay? And he loves to sleep. So he has to sleep at 9 p.m. So I remember that day, he was doing it, and parang okay na kami. He was going to go, play with his dad first, and then 9 p.m. Grabe, I remember it. Na one of the few times, sobra akong nagalit. He came to me and he told me, Mom, it is not CLE, which is our test tomorrow. Grabe, nagalit ako. Sobra akong nagalit. Sabi ko, ano ka ba? You're going to fall asleep. What is it? Nakalimutan ko kung ano, parang Pilipino yata. Ang alam ko, galit ako. Of course, galit ako, diba? So, sinabi niya Pilipino. Sabi ko, oh my God. Sabi ko, nag-aral ka ba? Do you know it? Tapos sinabi niya, Mom, hindi ako nag-review, pero alam ko, kasi hindi naman siya nagka-cram. So, he knows it naman.
Yes.
Diba? So, yun yung maganda. Diba? So, sabi ko, galit ako talaga. So, sinabi ko, pero ito yung parents, okay? Good, talaga sobra akong galit kasi sabi ano ba yan? Parang I trusted you. Pero mas takot ako na he really has to study. So ito yung nasa isip ko, parents. I should not, of course, I'm allowed to be angry because it is something which is really wrong. Okay? But getting angry at him and shouting at him for 30 minutes will not help. What is going to help is he has to study Filipino. Di ba? Yan yun. So I told him, obviously, you cannot sleep at 9 p.m. Wala na. You have to sleep later. Sabi ko, go to your room and just study Filipino. Ang tahimik niya sobra. Okay? And hindi ko siya katatabian. Ayoko nga buksan yung Filipino. So doon ako sa isang kwarto. Galit ako. Okay? Nandyan siya sa sarili niyang kwarto. Nag-aaral siya ng Filipino. Ayan, talagang tahimik kami dalawa. Galit ako. Pinag-aaral siya. And then after some time, I think he just said, good night, Mom. Tapos sabi ko, have you finished studying? Kasi galit pa rin ako, di ba? Tapos sinabi niya, Yes. So sabi ko, okay, yan lang. Wala, nothing went. And the next day, parang I had to go to school, he came back, and hindi ako grade conscious. Pero the first thing I asked, talaga, nanay ako eh. Kumusta ang Pilipino? Wala akong pakialam na kasi yung isang subject, pinag-aralan niya, alam ko okay. Takot ako sa Pilipino. Sabi ko, kumusta yung Pilipino? Oh, ma'am, it was fine. So doon ako medyo, ano ka ba? Yung sabi ko, ano ka ba? Scatin, talagang pinagalitan ko ng konti. Alam naman niya, yun. But this is the thing. What is the point of the whole story? That was in grade 3 and grade 4. It never happened again because I let him make that mistake. Okay? Right after that, he has 3 planners. Daig pa ako. Ngayon, meron siyang printed planner, meron siyang computer planner, meron siyang, takot na takot siya. Alam niya, buong buhay niya planado. And that is what we mean learning from the mistakes. Kung parang ibang nanay, ako ang gagawa ng schedule sa kanya, suppose I never let him make that mistake. I'm thinking now, actually, if I never let him make that mistake and I micromanage everything for him, I be a helicopter parent, baka right now, he might not be very responsible. So buti na rin, nagkamali siya ng bata siya when the consequences are very small. So teachers and parents, let your children make mistakes when it's okay. I mean, what's the worst that can happen? The worst that can happen is he did not do well in the test. That's fine. I know he will not flunk anyway. Diba? Yun eh. Pero if he's older and he never learned to be responsible, what's going to happen is going to be even worse. So yun, that's my kwento. So it's up to you, and we have to learn how to do it. Sorry, Scott, ang nakwento ko na.
Yeah, he's watching right now. I actually got the link from me, Dr. Queena, no? Dr. Queena, sobrang maraming salamat po dyan, ano, sa at least bata pala yung mga anak namin, so makakapag-adjust pa kami. Anyway, so Dr. Queena,
Yeah.
meron po mga questions from our audience, no? Although some of them you already mentioned, no, but maybe we could give some more input or insights about them. This is one from a little bit general from teacher Carly Gulfan. Okay? And he said, how to cope up with mental illness on distance learning, Doc. I think this is, Doc, no, this is both for the teachers and for the parents because we are all subjected, no, to mental health strain all throughout.
Alam mo, ito yung tanong na tinatakutan ko. I'm gonna be kaya nga inuna ko yung mental health eh. Carly, first you have to identify which kind of illness. There are different treatments for depression or anxiety or attention deficit disorder or panic attack or Asperger's syndrome. So first, you need to identify. Okay. Second, you need to have open communication with your child. Your child cannot hide anything from you, especially if it is depression, because we know what can happen with depression. They can actually harm themselves. Okay, so I'm quite worried about it. Sometimes, what I know is also sometimes mental health. A lot of children tell me, my students tell me, they have lost a loved one to COVID. Grief is also something very, very important, but the way to handle grief is also very different. So, Carly, that mental health is very broad. So, you really need to talk with your child so that you can understand which illness is it. And then, if you're very worried, I think you really need to see a professional. You cannot handle it on your own sometimes. Okay, Nana, I have to stress this. There are very many professionals here who can help. And this is an illness. This is not just pep talk. So minsan kasi Pinoy tayo, we downplay it. Nag-OA ka lang. It will pass. Alam mo, sometimes it won't. Okay, Paula knows this. I mean, Mr. Adon also knows this. So they know, we teachers know this. So parents, I'm quite worried about that. I think for this one, please try to get a copy of yung book kanina na sinabi ko, Mr. Adon, yung Lifeline. That one is the most important one, Lifeline. That one has the warning signs. It has scripts, parents. So it has the 5 mental health. So nandyan ang depression, including suicide attempt. Nandyan ang self-harm. Nandyan ang anxiety, nandyan yung grief, and nandyan sa trauma with natural disasters, including the pandemic. Okay, so maybe read that first. Do not overreact. Get the facts. Then, do what the book says. Meron kami sa mga checklist. Does your child exhibit this? Ganun, ganun. Okay? And then, meron kami sa likod ng book, we have resources. Which are the psychologists that you can go to? Which are the offices you can go to? Medyo natatakot ako sa tanong na yan. So please, if you are worried, that is something that you have to do. This is something that cannot wait. So you have to do it sooner rather than later. And God bless, I will pray for you. Natatakot ako talaga kung sa mental health kasi ibang klase na yung usapan kung mental health. Yun. Maybe easier
Yeah.
question, Mr. Adun.
Thank you, Dr. Queena. Ito po, general question, no? So, maybe tips lang, no? Kasi ito yung sa pinaka na-encounter ng mga parents natin. This is from teacher or parent po ba natin to, Josessa Mahinay. How can we motivate our children to answer their modules? I think the motivation part, Dr. Queena, no, is the biggest, perhaps a challenge to our teachers and to our parents.
Alam mo yung motivation, I will have to repeat what I said kanina. Motivation is a habit. It is not what you feel. Okay, so you can tell your child this, anak, let's make it a habit that after your live class, you will spend 30 minutes on your module. Anak, yan lang, 30 minutes. 30 minutes. Pagkatapos ng 30 minutes, you can play, you can, relax, you can take a bath, you can ganyan-ganyan. So, parang yan lang. So, it's not really motivation na. Nandyan na yung structure. Mahirap yung motivation. Mahirap lang yung motivation. Talagang, ayaw nilang gawin kung ang natatakot pa ako, ito pa yung ginagawa ng mga magulang. They will actually bribe their children. Alam mo, if you bribe your children, it will never end. How much? How much, diba? How much worth is your Filipino homework? 10 piso? What, your math? 100 pesos? You will never end. And they will want more and more, diba? And you want them to love learning. Okay, I will stress what loving learning means. Loving learning does not mean that you find learning pleasurable or entertaining the way that you find Netflix entertaining. Learning cannot be that entertaining because you have to think. Okay, something that's totally pleasurable, you do it without much thought. Pero something that is difficult, you will have to think about it. So it will naturally be not as appealing, even if that's your favorite subject, to anyone. But what my students know and what we teachers know is this, and what many of the students finally know is this, that when they start working on something and they learn something, they actually enjoy it. The enjoyment is different from enjoyment you get when you do a computer game or you watch Netflix. The enjoyment they get is more quiet. It is more, in fact, pride. It's a feeling of self-worth. It's a feeling of competence. It's a feeling na, uy, kaya ko pala to. And that is the one which will motivate them without you having to force them next time. That is the feeling they're gonna get. They're not going to say, rah, I love this whole thing. You can't. It's learning. But they're going to seek out books about it. They're going to go to YouTube videos about it. Yung anak ko, ang ginagawa niya, even from grade 7 high school first year, ang dami niyang kinuhang Coursera. So he was interested in astronomy and nobody teaches astronomy. So he went to Coursera, did an astronomy with a Nobel Prize winner in Yale. Sabi ko, naintindihan mo ba? Well, naintindihan niya iba, some of it. So he's not very happy he was doing it, but he was so interested. So parents, it's not happiness. You want interest. And you want competence. Interest and competence. So motivation is a habit. So parents, ang gagawin ninyo, structure it. Kung bata sila, 10 minutes anak, primary school, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, sige na, gawin natin to. After you do it, sige, let's review kung tama, then let's do something else. But get them into the rhythm. Okay? So, hindi na kailangan motivation. So araw-araw, gagawin niya yung module. Alam na niya. Okay? Hindi na siya magko-complain. So every 5 o'clock, he will do the mojo.
Dr. Queena, no? Very, very interesting insight. At ito naman, Dr. Queena, for the one that you mentioned about kanina, yung dangers ng online gaming, no? Kasi ang dami na nga na ano dito, na addict, no? Pero ito naman question is from Sir Merlo Montebon. Since Dr. Queen has mentioned about addiction of online gaming, how about if we use it to encourage learning, like using it to make the lessons more interesting? Would it still be okay?
Yeah, because I'm very sure that you will not do that for 4 hours or more. I'm very, very sure. But you will do that only for 5 to 10 minutes. Nobody gets addicted at 5 to 10 minutes. So addiction is something different. Okay, so online games, many of them are actually very educational, and yes, go ahead and use it. The best teachers, though, use a combination of online and offline. Kasi iba pa rin yung concentration ng offline. Okay, so many of the students now have attention ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, which many developmental pediatricians say is highly correlated to the amount of time they spend on gadget. Kasi yung mga gadgets sa gaming, instant gratification na mabilis, di ba? So, that's not really the way our mind evolves. But I agree. To make it more interesting, you can do a 10-minute game. Then you partner it with a 15-minute worksheet. Okay, yeah, that's a very good routine. Okay, so nobody will get addicted to the educational game, I'm sure. Actually, I wish they will. They will not get addicted to educational games. They'll get addicted to other games. Alam natin yan. Which we are not going to use for online, education. Yeah.
I agree with that, Dr. Quinn. Maybe the principles of gaming should be applied, but not, of course, in educational setting. Ito po, Dr. Quinn, from teacher, Miss Ha, I don't know if it's a parent or a teacher, but a question on Zoom fatigue. How can you tell us more about Zoom fatigue and how can we manage it both for students and teachers po? Ito po, teach. And actually, lahat na rin siguro, pati parents.
This is a very good question kasi yan nga yung sinasabi ng doktor. So tama yung term, Heidi. Tama yung term ninyo. Zoom fatigue is really what doctors say. Zoom fatigue would really be that the students or even tayo, ako nagsuzoom fatigue ako minsan if I have 4 webinars a day. Dapat talagang, it's Zoom. So ngayon, I'm limiting it to 2 webinars lang. This is the first one and later, isa pa, yun. So, yung Zoom fatigue, it really will be, we are always online and we are it's physical and mental. The physical is easier to deal with. So the eyesight normally goes, so we start getting, kasi the eyes are connected to the brain, diba? Especially the occipital area at the back of the brain. So if you start getting a headache at the back of your brain, dito, that's actually the eyesight. Okay? So yung temples dito, iba yan. So this is the occipital lobe. So many, many times, para masakit dito, we know that we are staring so much on screen. This is how one of the doctors explained it to me. Sinabi niya kasi tayo when we're doing on screen, di ba? We forget to blink. Nagulat ako doon, sinabi ng doktor yun. We forget to blink. Okay, because parang we're always staring di ba? So they have this, I think you can Google this, kasi lumabas yung Philippine Ophthalmology Society, this 20-20-20 rule. Like, you have to, every 20 minutes now, you have to focus, which I actually don't follow a lot. You have to focus 20 meters for 20 seconds. Every 20 minutes. Sabi ko, my God, di ko yung kaya if I have a 3-hour class. But that can also, they want to do it to prevent or eliminate Zoom fatigue. That's one. So one would be ito. And then second, the doctors also have very many things. Like, we have to stretch. You have to, kahit na nakaupo ka, you do things with your, with your feet. Diba? You have to pump it up and down. You move around in your seat. Diba? Yung parang, sometimes minsan I apologize to my students. I will tell them, guys, I really have to just stand up. So I will actually stand up, ayan, and go back and walk around the room. So Zoom fatigue happens because we human beings have not evolved to be on screen all the time. Hindi kaya ng katawan natin. So it's coming out in all sorts of ways. So we have to take a break with Zoom fatigue. Okay. Gusto ng doktor, 20 minutes. I think many of us, we can take a break at maybe 2 hours. I think, estudyante ko, kaya nila ng 2 hours Mas bata kayo, mas kaya ninyo So mga 2 hours, you take a break. Kasi take a break, just do. And sabi ng doktor, to avoid Zoom fatigue, make sure the break you take is also not online. So yun parang, when you're doing Zoom, don't go naman to YouTube kasi yan na naman tayo, di ba? So the break has to be physical break. You really walk around the room. Kumain ka is a good thing. Kape, maligo, these are all good breaks. Magluto, ayan na. These are basta something which is totally not on screen. And then you go back to Zoom. Yan. Good question.
I think Sir Jambi has a follow-up question on that, Dr. Queena.
Ayan, yes. Thank you, Sir Franco. Doc, may follow-up question lang po ako because I am sure that our viewers, hindi lang sila puro parents, hindi lang din sila puro teachers. Perhaps many of them are administrators or those who would actually have deciding powers sa school. And actually, many of us are in that phase na we're all preparing for the next school year. So in line po with Zoom fatigue, Doc Queena, ano po siguro one or two things that you would highly recommend schools to actually put to place para maiwasan po natin yung Zoom fatigue?
If you can, do not structure 2 classes, especially if the class is at least 30 to 40 minutes. Do not have the children be in 2 consecutive 30 to 40-minute classes. There has to be a break in between class. That's one thing. Second, much we want it, we cannot. I know of one school, a very heroic school, pero sabi ko, it's too much. This one certain school, I don't know how they were able to do it. They actually have eight live classes a day. That's too much. I think that's too much. So let's maybe for the high school. So developmentally appropriate, perhaps for high school, if each high school session is 40 to 50 minutes, perhaps maximum of 3 to maximum na talaga yung 4 a day. Maybe 2 in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, with sufficient breaks in between. And the teacher has to make it extremely clear to the students that when they have a break, it's going to be a physical break. Okay? Kasi yung mga bata kung magbe-break, nasa computer din. I think you may need to harness the cooperation of the parents. Okay? Yung mga parents na nagsasabi na, pasaway yung mga bata and they would still do it, we cannot do anything about it, but tell the parents you're doing it for their own good. You have to talk with the parents and say, this is the schedule of the school. So meron tayong, for 1 hour class, I think 15 to 20-minute break is not bad. If you want to make it easier for you, 1 hour class, 30-minute break, then 1 hour class. Yun. And then maybe a long lunch break, and another class, and a 30-minute break, and another class. Yun. Could be something like that. But it has to be structured and done. Of course, for younger children, you cannot have 1 hour. So developmentally, again, diba? So younger children, mga 20 minutes maybe, 20 minutes, and then 10, 15 minutes, or 20 minutes live class, 20-minute break, 20-minute live class, 20-minute break, and that's it. Maybe 3 iterations of those. Depende.
Thank you, Doc. Tsaka po
Thank you.
siguro, at the beginning of the pandemic or when we started our distance learning, we weren't sure kung ano yung gagawin ng physical education department. Pero perhaps this is something that they can now focus on.
Jambi, that's superb. That's very, very good. Okay? They can have PE. I would recommend that gusto ko yung PE, but if they are still on screen to do the PE movements, it might be a bit difficult. So baka ang pwedeng gawin ng PE, they can give worksheets na ito yung gagawin ninyo at home, na parang kasi gusto natin talaga walang screen eh. So that's the Zoom fatigue eh. So kunwari 1 hour, gusto mo yung 30 minutes, wala silang screen. Gusto mo yung 30 minutes, gawin nila yung sasabihin ng PE anong gagawin nila. Kung pwede. But also, since PE, I think is very important, maybe PE can even have one live class a week, diba? But for the other times, the recess, maybe, PE can also give fitness, whatever, yung mga ganon. Maybe Zumba, yung ganon. Something that is physical, but that does not require the child to be on screen or to go to another screen. So ako, I sometimes do YouTube Zumba. But minsan mapapagod din ako eh. Kasi tumitingin pa rin ako eh, di ba? So sabi ko minsan, wag na ako mag-tutor. I'll just dance. Whoever who cares naman, di ba? How much you can dance, nandiyan ka lang, di ba? So, yun din. So, may kaunting Zoom fatigue pa rin if we're trying to follow somebody on screen. That's a very good idea, Jambi. The
Thank you
PE.
po, Dr. Gus. So, thank you, Sir Jamie, for that question. Maybe we could entertain one last question before, because it's already almost time now because of the schedule of Dr. Queena. Admins, that you have questions? Because most of the questions in the audience have been answered. Teacher Pao, go ahead.
All right. Hello, Doc. We'd like to thank you for the many insights, no, whether we are parents, teachers, or even student, no. I'm sure they will get something out of this webinar. So my question, Doc, is of course we are thankful for parents who are able to communicate their struggles with the school, no, with the teachers. But what can we do to help parents who don't actually communicate with the school, but then their children is already having problems with how the module is being answered, or absences in class? How can we actually help these parents as teachers?
That's the second hardest question after the mental health. Hey, Pao. Minsan natatakot din ako kung may parent teacher But yes, that is a reality. Pao, the school has to be the one to reach out. Okay, we cannot expect the parents to be the one to reach out. So first, the protocol I know in several schools would be, first, the teacher will do it either on PTC, okay, and then make sure that the parent looks at it. That's one. That's the first one. If that doesn't work, the teacher can elevate it maybe to the subject counselor, to the coordinator, who will now maybe phone the parent. It depends on the school, basta escalation na yan. Okay? And talagang medyo friendly pa rin, a friendly note, but firm note, with the logo of the school and the signature of the teacher, and telling the child, iho or iha, kailangan talaga mabasa ng magulang or guardian. Kaya baka minsan wala silang magulang or guardian ninyo. Kailangan talaga. And kailangan talaga namin, we meet. But I know sometimes parents will still not, parang denial pa rin, or they will not, Pao, we have no choice eh. Kasi we have no choice because we are worried about the child and the child is getting worse. And we know that parents need to be on board. So much as we don't like to do it, we will have to use the big guns, tawag nga natin. Ibig sabihin, ang alam ko sa isang eskwelahan, principal na eh. The principal is actually the one. And usually sa principal, medyo it works a bit. Kasi principal, di ba? Parang, alam ko sa isang eskwelahan, yung principal na tumawag, yung nakasagot yaya. Tapos parang kinukulat ng principal sa akin, sabi niya, medyo pinapastos pa siya kasi, wala si Mrs. dito. Dami Tapos sinabi niya, ako ang principal. Sinabi niya, principal to. Hindi na ako, talaga natatakot na kami, baka bumagsak si ganito. And she heard talaga the yaya. Parang umiba yung demeanor ng yaya. And 5 minutes after, the mother was on the line. Nandiyan pala. Pero talagang, so ito yung kwento ng isang principal na, imagine yung principal na yung nakikisagot sa nanay kasi yung hindi raw ini-ignore, ganyan, may mental health issue na yung anak. So, no choice, the principal had to be the one to do it. But before you do it, Pao, I think this same principal, I told her I actually love what she did. I also told her, can I use her story? So I'm using it. But she told me not to use her school. Yan lang. Pero, principal ko na matino na maganda yung ginawa niya. Pero ang sinabi ko, ang medyo mali niya is she did not talk very well with the subject teacher about the details on how exactly they can help. So yung subject teacher na nauna, alam niya. Tapos yung coordinator, medyo kaunting alam. Pero nainis na naging principal, nainis ang principal, pero hindi niya alam yung gagawin. So parang, so it was a good, kasi natakot na yung nanay eh. You know, so kasi sinabi ng principal, we're not very happy with the performance and your child might have to repeat the grade. Naku, sobrang na natakot ng nanay, di ba? So, pero yan na, but what do you do after? So medyo the principal was, magaling yung principal, pero sana, so what am I trying to say? Pao, for the school, it is a case-by-case basis. So the one who is going to contact the mother or the father will have to have concrete suggestions on what to do with the child. I have another kwento on another school. Okay, so this one, it didn't have to go to the principal. Subject coordinator, actually guidance. Ito. Okay, this other school, the one that contacted the parent was the guidance counselor. Because the child was exhibiting extreme anxiety, so lots and lots of crying, sumasakit yung tiyan kung may report card, yung talagang alam nila takot sa grades. So kahit na, sabi ng guidance, medyo honor student pa rin yung bata. That is the funny thing. So honor student yung bata, pero so it was the guidance who actually was the one who called the parent, and this guidance counselor is very good. Kasi pagtawag niya sa parent, hindi lang motherhood statement. Hindi lang niya sinasabi you should seek help. Meron na siyang recommendation pa. Na parang, in this school, we actually have worked with the following, parang psychologist, child psychologist. And you may want to, ganito. Of course, ang tinanong sa kanya ng nanay, how much does it cost? Pero sinabi ng guidance, I don't know, but kasi medyo, this school I have in mind, medyo, elite naman yung mga, it's an elite school. So, ang sinabi ng guidance, I don't know how much it costs, but I know that these psychologists we're giving you, we are also recommending them to other of our students with good results. So, medyo sinabi niya sa akin, doktora, alam ko naman, kaya naman nila yung bayaran, yung ganon, di ba? Magaling siya. She stressed to the parent that the parent has to go and seek help kaagad. That it is urgent. Ang galing nitong guidance counselor. I wish more guidance counselors were like that. Kasi sinabi niya sa akin, minsan kung hindi mo sinabi, you have to do it kaagad, they will postpone it and they will never do it. And the child will get worse and worse and worse. So talagang inano niya. Tapos pagpasok pa ng bata sa eskwelahan, tinanong pa niya yung bata, are you going to see, parang, she nagged the child. This is a 1 in a million guidance counselor, tuwang-tuwa ako sobra sa kanya. So this is one thing she can actually do. So parang, whether it is mental health issues or whether it's grades, the school has to be the one, and you don't give up. You don't give up with the contacting the parent, because if you give up, we're actually giving up on the child. We don't give up talaga. You have to, by hook or by crook. Ang sabi sa akin ng ibang public school, I also teach public school teachers. They actually have home visits. Kung wala raw yung mga bata sa aralan, they actually go to the house. And some of the public schools, the teachers tell me now they cannot do it, and natatakot talaga sila. Kasi baka minsan daw, what's the worst na? I'll just say it na rin, kasi we're all teachers here. Last week, medyo may isa nagsabi sa akin, natatakot siya. Sabi ko, hindi ko rin alam anong gagawin mo. Natatakot siya, baka may abuse sa bahay. Kasi parang yung bata daw, nasa kanya last year, ibang-iba na raw this year. Sabi ko, but you cannot jump to abuse. You don't know. Sabi ko, maybe it's just anxiety due to the pandemic. Pero marami siyang kwento, so medyo natakot din ako. Pero sinabi ko, I don't know, but you have to talk to the principal about it. So, if the serious cases like this, talagang, kasi yung bata, yung natin responsibility that we are the second parents of the child. So we need to take care of things like this. So yun, napaano na ako pa kasi medyo napaisip ko rin yung ano nangyayari sa, sa guro na who told me about it, and hindi ko rin alam yung sasabihin ko sa kanila. Yan. So there are also many things we don't know what to do. But we just pray and try to do the best we can.
Yeah. Thank you,
I
Dr.
hope,
Queen. I think that's going to be
I'm okay with still, it's 3:25. I can still do one more question if there's still
one
one
more
more.
question po.
One more.
From maybe from the admins or from our audience po so far. Let me look in our live chat, Dr. Queen, if we have another
Ngayon ko lang,
question.
grabe, ang daming live chat.
Very active po, no? Very warm and very active po talaga ang community namin, Dr. Queen. Talagang, yeah, the ideas. Actually, lagi namin sinasabi, in itself, Dr. Queen, the live chat is in another webinar in itself. So you'll actually learn also a lot of things.
Di
Ito,
ba?
Dr. Queen, well, wait lang po, no? We're just waiting for some other questions. So far
Ang,
po, parang
ang,
wala naman na Dr. Queen actually yung ano nila. Puro insights na lang po so far yung nakikita namin sa sa live chat po natin ngayon. Okay? I think
I actually,
Sir Franco,
I actually
Sir
see
Franco.
something here,
ay,
but I see a lot of kwento ninyo na medyo
yes, apo.
si Carol Layog saying tantrums, prevalent entitlement. Yes, sadly, I do agree with Carol Layog that yes, very, very sadly, many of our young people act in a very entitled way today. But I also feel a lot of it when you look at literature. It's because of the way they were parented. Very permissive parenting. Parents who just don't, even give them boundaries. So that's why no child is born being entitled. Many children actually are born wanting to please. But when you spoil the child, that becomes entitled. So, Carol, I totally agree with you, and I know that's another 2 hours if we're going to talk about entitlement. There's another one who's from Argil Tano. Doc, what advice can you give to parents who let their children answer modules for a whole day? Hindi naman whole day, di ba? Kasi you need a break even from studying. One of the things which is not in my thing, but if I had a longer time, I would have included it, would be a longer version of the Pomodoro technique. The Pomodoro technique would be you let them study for a period of time, then they need a break, then you cycle. So what I tell my students is you study for 1 hour, then you break 15 minutes, 20 minutes, real break. Another hour, break 15 to 20 minutes, another hour, 15 to 20 minutes, and that's it. You don't study the whole time because studies also show that a lot of the insights come when you are at rest. I used to be on the swim team. Okay? A lot of times when I'm dealing with a mathematics problem, hindi ko talaga, kahit na isip ako ng isip, nakaupo ako, hindi talaga siya papasok. But when your mind becomes more relaxed, okay, the aha moment comes in. Many, many times when I swim, maybe on the 10th lap, when you're medyo relaxed, alam mo, yung sagot pumapasok. So I actually have pen and paper beside the swimming pool. I get up, pasang ako, I scribble down the answer and jump back. Ganun talaga, my batchmates know this. So, so it's the same thing. Si Father Nebres, he, even when he's very old, he jogs around Ateneo. And when he was president, I asked him, why do you do it? He said, because I have so many things on my mind and I cannot work. His mind is always active. But if he really is in a difficult dilemma, he will jog. Buong Ateneo yan, jogging yan. And he said the answer will come to him. So, kung laging nakaupo yung bata na nag-aaral, kahit na hindi on screen, kahit na sa lang, it's not physically healthy for them. We are not made to also be always seated down all the time. You have to sit, then you walk, then you stand, then you run, then you go. It's a cycle. Okay, so the whole day is not good. Okay, but maybe for high school, I think studying for 4 hours total a day would be okay. We have 24 hours. So 4 hours a day, aside from live class, is perfectly fine. In fact, you should be doing that. 4 hours of live class, 4 hours of non-live, that's only 8 hours. 16 hours to do other things. 8 hours for sleep. You have another 8 hours maybe to do other things. Yun. Okay, so and marami pa, but
Agreed.
yeah. This,
Sobrang
now it's
actually yes,
3.
sobrang dami pa pero ako and again, Dr. Win, hindi naman 'to basta-basta matatapos kasi ang dami talagang puwedeng pag-usapan, ang daming, ano 'no, halukayin na topics saka mga ano, ideas. Pero anyway, siguro po before we end 'no, we'd like to, of course, na appreciate and acknowledge 'no, the presence and, contribution of Dr. Queena Lee-Chua in our, webinar for today. And I'd like to call, Sir Angel Malyari, to present our, certificate of, appreciation to Dr. Queen.
Yeah. So, certificate of appreciation. This certificate of achievement is awarded to Dr. Queena Lee-Chua for sharing her knowledge and expertise in the recent concluded webinar entitled Managing Distance Learning, a Guide for Parents, awarded on March 13, 2021, signed by the administrators of Kaagapay. Maraming salamat po, Dr. Queena Lee-Chua, for this very wonderful and insightful webinar.
Yes, actually no, I think we can all agree naman no, lalo sa mga parents natin, teachers natin sa live chat natin that this is indeed no. Sabi nga nila parang gusto pa madami pa silang gusto matutunan. So, we'll definitely will share all the resources of Dr. Queen Lee-Chua, all the books no, that she mentioned. We'll be posting it in Kaagapay Teacher Support. We'd like to buy them, purchase them, as well as all the online, marami rin po mga online resources si Dr. Queen Lee-Chua that can be shared. No? So we'll all link them via Kaagapay Teacher Support for your access teachers. Na yun. So, Dr. Queena Lee-Chua, Dr. Queena, final message po no, or message to our teachers before will you prepare for your next webinar this afternoon?
Let us try to see the positive in the pandemic. This pandemic has affected many of us negatively. But we need to be, as teachers and as parents, because our students or our children, the young people, look up to us, what we say, especially what we do. We try our best to be the best people we can be, while also telling them that they cannot expect us to be perfect, that we are human. The same way we cannot expect them to be perfect. But as long as we can be in each other's shoes, they understand, children understand parents and vice versa. Teachers understand students and vice versa. Maybe, just maybe, instead of this being a tragedy, maybe this pandemic can even be a learning experience and a time of growth for everyone. So that's my last message.
Thank you po. Maraming salamat rin Dr. Queena for this afternoon. And we wish you good health po no and stay safe all throughout. And maraming salamat Dr. Queena for all the things that you've been doing for Ateneo, for the whole of for the country no and helping us manage no all of these things through your expertise. Maraming salamat po. Regards po to Scott, Dr. Queena.
Welcome, Mr. Adon, and bye, Pao, and Jello, and Jambi, and bye, everyone. See you, and God bless. Bye-bye.
Yeah, so for our next speaker,
Yan na po ang
Dr.
favorite speaker
Pao
natin.
Mendoza. Ay.
Agad-agad.
Grabe no, grabe talaga. You know what's usual what always amazes me about Dr. Queena Lee-Chua, despite na sobrang na taas na ng narating niya, ang dami na niyang yung kita mo naman yung parang kinulang sa hininga si Sir Jambi sa kanina sa pag-go-enter dun sa haba nung at Sir Jambi, no, must I say, that's a shortened version, no? Kasi
Mukha
hindi
nga.
talaga kaya, yes, hindi kaya talagang isulat ng ganun lang kaikli, no? Pero despite this, no, kita niyo kung gaano ka yung humility ni Dr. Queena. Sir Jambi, share ko lang, no, Teacher Pao tsaka Sir Jello, nag-email lang talaga ako. Ganun lang. Nag-send ako ng email, Dr. Queena Lee-Chua, would like to invite you. No? I'm the former teacher of your son. Siyempre, ginamit ko yung card na yun, ano? Yung, yung teacher card ko, no?
Sana all may ganung card.
Oo nga.
Tapos yun, naalala naman niya, sabi niya, "Ay, oo nga, okay." Tapos gano'n. And then, wala nang ano, wala nang mga paligoy-ligoy, wala nang naging problema. As in tuloy-tuloy na, and then, we proceeded with the date, et cetera, or and that's it. Gano'n lang ka-ano. And to think, no, given her, achievements, given her ano, like, status right now, that's something you really like, you really appreciate, no? Yeah. Admin's insights or, anything that you'd, like to add?
Siguro Sir Franco, before tayo mag-continue, re-remind lang natin yung mga
Mm.
kagapay natin na maaga pa po, maaga pa po. We still have time. Ayan. Baka mag-ano na kayo, baka mag-break na kayo bigla. Pero pagpatuloy pa po natin yung discussion. Feel free to share your questions pa rin, your own experiences via our comment section. Yan, para mapagpatuloy pa po natin yung pag-uusap. Ako, Sir Franco, um, kanina, 'di ba, ano, you asked si Teacher Pau at the beginning kung ano yung ine-expect niya. Ako, ano yung ine-expect ko na I'd like to believe na ano naman na-achieve naman natin through this webinar. Yung mabawasan man lang kahit papano, if not mawala altogether. Yung feeling ko kasi yung tension between the parents and the teachers na naka-root sa fact na hindi natin naiintindihan yung pinanggagalingan ng bawat isang side. Okay? Actually, alam mo, you'd be surprised nga kahit teacher parent ka na, to a certain extent hindi mo pa rin mapag-fuse together yung dalawang hats na yon. So sana through this webinar kahit papaano our teachers sort of understood a little kung ano yung pinagdadaanan ng mga parents kasi si Dr. Chua naman is a parent. Tapos sa side naman ng parent, sana din kahit papaano naintindihan natin yung pinanggagalingan or lahat ng mga efforts na ginagawa ng ating mga teachers, kahit ano din, through si Dr. Queena rin. So, sana na-achieve natin yon or naumpisahan man lang natin at patuloy tayong susubukin na i-bridge yung gap na yon.
Agree. Gustong-gusto ko yung point na yun ni Sir Jambi, no? I think this opened like sort of like, yun yung pinakailangan siguro, Sir Jambi, no? Yung na-miss natin. Kasi sabi ko, pero hindi natin syempre ma-blame yung mga teachers at mga parents natin, no? Ang bilis kasi yung mga pangyayari. So, we're all thrown into a rush, no? Nag-rush yung mga parents, nag-rush yung mga teachers, ni-rush natin yung mga estudyante natin. So, tama yung point ni Sir Jambi, no? Na baka kailangan natin ulit umupo, mag-usap, alamin kung ano yung nangyayari on both sides, no? Alamin ng mga teachers nangyayari sa mga parents, alamin ng mga parents yung nangyayari sa mga teachers, and hopefully we can meet halfway, no? And of course, ito naman ay para sa ating mga estudyante. So maraming salamat Sir Jamie for that. Teacher Pau, Sir Jello.
Ako na muna bago po nung next speaker natin magsalita. So ako na po muna.
Wait, di ka pa na-receive yung yung write-up?
Mahaba daw rin po kasi
Mahaba, hindi
kaya
kaya.
Hindi nagawa pa.
Ipapa-print pa yun. Okay, may ipapa-hardbound pa natin yung ni Teacher Pau.
Ayan. Ako, I agree with Sir Jambing. Ang ganda nung webinar na to in terms of bridging that particular gap. And at the same time, it's difficult, but it's enlightening. Kasi, kumbaga, wearing the hats, I think all of us are wearing that same hat. Teacher, parent. Parang minsan, ang hirap na i-balance. Kaya nga ako, nung nagsimula pa lang si Dr. Queena Lee, nagno-notes na ako. Nagno-notes na ako. At nagsinusulat ko talaga ng mga insights na nakuha ko. And one of the things that really resonates to me as a parent, kasi ito nung parang nilagay ko nung position as a parent, as I was listening to Dr. Queena Lee, is marami siyang nabanggit about yung mga kinakatakot ng parents. For example, nung fear for our children, yung distractions, kasi di ba parang as online, gusto natin nasa isang lugar sila na kung saan they will really be conducive of studying, of learning. Tapos syempre takot rin tayo mag-fail sila in a way kasi syempre especially having young ones, parang I don't know how they will be able to handle it, even the hardship. Parang this particular webinar helps me realize that this seemingly bad things that what we associate with especially in this pandemic are actually sometimes necessary para mas matuto. Kumbaga kung sabi nga ni Dr. Queena, little fear is normal kasi we are in this pandemic. Parang pag hindi ka na natatakot, mas mahirap yun. Mas matakot tayo pag hindi na tayo natatakot sa sitwasyon natin ngayon. Tapos yung distraction kasi syempre living in a small space, syempre we cannot, I personally cannot have a place para dito kayo mag-aral, etong room nyo for studying. Hindi, parang me, my wife, my 2 children are all doing online. And minsan nagkakasabay-sabay so hindi namin alam kung saan kami pwesto. Minsan nasa labas kami, nasa sala kung saan man kami pwede, pati sa kwarto sa lahat na ng place. And sometimes yung distraction, parang inisip namin, baka hindi sila makapag-aral. Pero sabi nga niya, you have to put that, you have to be open to that. Kasi the world, there is that distraction, maraming distraction to. It's also a good way for students, for our children to really go through this particular distraction. Then failure, sinabi naman natin yun na parang minsan takot tayo, mag-fail sila. So nag-resonate talaga nung especially sa anak ko na parang, do I want him to have better grades or okay lang mag-fail? And minsan we have to assure him kasi minsan siya rin mismo parang gusto niya okay nung grades pero sabi niya okay lang magkamali, okay lang yan. So parang it's something that resonates in us, and also nung learning that hindi siya masaya. Kaya natuwa ako nung sharing ni Miss Queena nung students kasi ayun my son is now in Xavier and we are not even Chinese, so parang teaching Chinese, we don't know how to teach Chinese. Parang sabi ko nga sa kanya, nag-usap kami pag gana. So, kailangan mag-aral kasi hindi ko rin alam paano ko ituturo sa iya. So, minsan I sit down and minsan ako rin mismo natututo habang pero minsan syempre I cannot but help. Pero natuwa ako na parang dumating siya sa point na at the very beginning ayaw na ng Chinese. Parang takot siya sa Chinese kasi nga hindi niya alam. Pero eventually towards the end, parang I felt that the sense na natutuwa siya kasi nako-comment siya na-realize na kaya naman pala niya. And then parang kami ngayon looking forward to study Chinese even in the summer kahit yun nung time lang niya to study. Parang so those things, fear, distraction, failure, hardship are even part of learning, and we should not be very afraid to that as parents. Parang minsan kailangan natin hayaan sila pagdaanan yon para mas matuto rin sila at lumago bilang tao. Yon.
Correct. Sir, pwede ko bang susugan lang yung sinabi ni
Sir Jambi.
ni Sir Angelo? I just don't remember when, pero I remember nabanggit na natin to in one of our webinars before. Pero ulitin ko po na you'd be surprised po kung gaano kagaling yung mga estudyante natin, yung mga anak natin. Okay? Actually, marami doon sa anxiety na nararamdaman natin either as parent or as teacher. Walang basihan. Yung kumbaga inaano lang natin, iniisip lang natin, naku, hindi niya kasi yan kaya, hindi niya yan magagawa. Okay? Pero yung sandaling bigyan mo lang sila ng chance to do it on their own, bigla kayong masu-surprise na, aba, kaya pala nilang gawin. Ito, very quickly share ko lang, meron may project yung daughter ko, ito, this week. Tapos ay nag-initiate na ako, kinontak ko yung mga co-parents ko. And I had a co-parent who was very worried kasi inisip niya, naku, hindi yan magagawa ng anak ko. Ganyan. So antayin pa niya na makauwi siya, ganyan, etc. etc. Tapos alam mo, after a while, nag-send siya sa akin ng contribution ng daughter niya. Tapos sabi niya, apparently, my daughter knows how to do it. Alam pala niya kung paano gawin. So, 'di ba, wag tayong matakot na tayo mismo sorpresahin ng mga ng mga anak at estudyante natin sa napakarami nilang kayang-kayang gawin.
Maraming salamat yun, sir. Maraming salamat, Sir Jabe. No? Teacher Pau, insights or...
Okay, pareho kami ni Sir Jello eh. Ito, may papel din talaga. Kailangan magsulat. Pag Queen Lee nagsalita, marami kang makukuha, di ba? So actually, yung nakita niya, yung first part, I think those are practical applications, no? Things that we can actually do sa bahay mismo na hindi mo naiisipin. Which also translates to yung sinasabi niya nga na if we talk to any parent, we provide them concrete information, concrete steps how we can actually help our students. So, nakita ko doon na ang talagang fino-focus niya, it doesn't matter what kind of situation you're in. What matters is how you actually respond to that situation. Lumabas yung nature, lumabas yung physical activities. Nasabi ni Sir Franco, tutulungan na natin yung mga teachers. Di ba? Tutulungan natin yung mga teachers how to do physical activities also. So, these are concrete steps, no, na sana yun din talaga yung masundan even ng parents. And it helps that your mindset is on a positive note, no? Positive mindset ka lang din. Yun din yung parting words ni Doc Queena. You will, despite this pandemic, there's still something positive to look, no? To look forward to. Bakit? Ako lang yung hindi makarelate muna dun sa parent, no? Kasi kayong tatlo ay mga dakilang ama, no? So ako, lang ako, fur parent ng 10 dogs, yan. So, yun pa lang yung na-fur parent ko. Pero, I learned so much as a teacher na posibleng ito nga yung pinagdadaanan talaga ng mga magulang. Kaya nga the question that I really pose to Doc Queena is how can we really inspire the parents? Because we really do have hope for the children that's under our tutelage. So yun talaga yung nakikita ko na there's still hope. No, kahit na nakita natin hindi pumapasok, hindi gumagawa ng module and everything else, there's still hope. Wag lang natin silang susukuan. Kasi malamang sa malamang, kung naririnig na nga natin na some parents might not have time for them, but us, this is our vocation as teachers, no? Tayo din yung tutulong din sa kanila, no? So it's something that we can continue to do, no? And as the tagline goes nga ng group, kaagapay. So the teachers ang kaagapay ng mga magulang, no, para sa mga anak talaga nila. So yun yung nakikita ko talaga na sobrang thankful for this webinar, no, because we really gained practical steps on how to assist our children.
Maraming salamat, no? I think teachers, no, sobrang busog na busog tayo sa mga insights, no? Sa mga parents po natin sa live audience natin today, sa mga teachers po natin. Ako na lang, very, very short lang, no? What I really would like to emphasize dito sa webinar natin is that yung importance talaga ng collaboration between different agencies ng education, no? Nakita natin na hindi talaga tayo mag-work teachers, no? Itong distance learning na to, hindi to basta-basta magiging successful kung we don't have our parents on board with us, okay? At the same time, no, yung mga parents naman po natin should also realize no, yung mga ginagawa ng mga teachers natin. So this really is a collaboration between the teachers, parents, students, and even our school administrators. So nakita rin natin kanina kung paanong dapat pati itong mga school administrators po natin ay maggagawa rin ng mga changes. No? Kasi syempre, ang mga teachers natin nakakulong din sa mga school policies natin. No? Gustuhin natin, for example, na mas maging accommodating, mas maging expansive, comprehensive sa coverage natin. Kailangan natin no, yung yung school natin also responsive dun sa mga teachers natin. So talagang siya, whole, no? Kabuuan, hindi lang parents, hindi lang teachers, hindi lang school administrators. We really have to all work together in order to go through no successfully in this actually hindi lang sa distance learning, Sir Jambi, Sir Jello, tsaka baka naman pagkatapos ng distance learning tapos na rin po hindi na rin tayo nag-uusap-usap ng mga mga parents, mga teachers. Ito po ay sa kabuuan ng edukasyon, no. So kahit post pandemic, ito ay dapat nagpapatuloy na yung collaboration between school tsaka bahay. Kasi ang edukasyon po ay nangyayari sa madaming ano, no, lugar at espasyo. Okay? So, maraming salamat, admins, Sir Jello, Sir Jambi, Teacher Pao. No? Teachers, maraming salamat din po. Do you have research seminars po, action research for particular? Yes, Sir Samuel. Na please visit our YouTube channel. We have a full webinar on action research. So you might want to check that out. No? It's part of our January series. Okay? So teachers, maraming salamat. No? Magpapaalam na po kami for this afternoon. We're a little bit earlier, but I think that you all deserve this. Magpahinga po tayo. As we mentioned, no, kailangan din po natin ng pahinga. Kasi wala po tayong maibibigay pag tayo po ay ubus na. So we hope that this afternoon was fruitful on your end. And you've learned a lot, and we've assisted you once more, no, in your mission as teachers. Maraming salamat po. Ay, by the way po, bago tayo matapos, syempre, ito na po ang inyong evaluation link. Baka maubos, baka makalimutan natin. Ano? Ito na po ang evaluation link niya, teachers. Please don't forget that the evaluation link, teachers, no, will be opened until Monday, and your certificates will be based on your evaluations. Please make sure to answer it properly. Yung names po natin, kasi yung pong gagamit namin for your certificates. Also, your email addresses para hindi po nagba-bounce back yung inyong certificate sa amin at matatanggap nyo po. Okay, so that will be, after answering this evaluation link, we will process your evaluation. In 5 to 7 days, we will send your certificates via email. Wala po kayong pupuntahang websites, teachers, no? Wala kayong pupuntahang mga extra link. It will be sent to your emails, no? So wala pong bayad.
At walang babayaran.
Wala pong babayaran. Dapat wala po kayo pinapadalhan ng GCash, no? Kasi wala po talaga ako natatanggap, teachers, no? So dapat po wala tayong pinapadala, teachers. So maraming salamat, admins. Maraming salamat din. And teachers, have a nice... let me check on that not working the link natin. Before tayo umalis, pangalawang link natin to na hindi nag-work. Let me check on that, teachers. Sir Jambis, Teacher Pao, Sir Jello, maybe we could share more insights or anything while I'm fixing the link.
Sure, yun lang pala eh. Alam mo namang nabitin kami sa daldal. And then siguro sige, sharing tayo ng perhaps the best practices na ginagawa natin either as teacher, as admin, or as parent ngayong panahon ng pandemic na palagay natin ay makakatulong sa ating mga kaagapay. Kayo rin po, mga kasama natin sa comment section, kung meron po kayong gusto ninyong i-share na baka there's one other person out there who would benefit from your sharing, sulit na po yun. Ayan. Sige, teacher pa muna.
Ay, madali, Sir Jambi, no? Sir Jambi, ano lang sa mga teachers natin, pa-refresh na lang po, okay na po yung link.
Ayan.
Okay.
Si Teacher Pao daw. Anong best practice mo, Teacher Pao, bukod sa mag-TikTok?
Yun.
Oh my goodness. Bakit mo ni-reveal? Okay.
May YouTube na daw yun. May
Secret
YouTube na daw.
Okay, mamaya, madagdagan ng followers natin, Diyos ko po. Okay, now, actually sa akin, no, ang mindset ko lang parati is, positive yan. Kahit na may batang hindi nagsasubmit, may batang hindi nagte-turn in ng expected work nila, first question is, did we as teachers do everything in our power? Okay, that's the first question. The second question is, have we talked to the student? No, communicated to the student. The third is, pag hindi pa rin umeffect yun, of course, you tell it to, sa mga teachers, no, you tell it to your supervisor, okay, to get more insights. Because collaborative naman ang community natin eh. And then the next step is to actually call for the parent. No? Kasi dun at dun. And proven ko yan. Ang parents talaga, pag kinausap mo, syempre iba-iba reactions. Pero one thing is for sure, they are happy to hear feedback, whether negative or positive. Pagka nakarinig sila ng feedback, tungkol sa work ng anak nila, they are very thankful. Kasi ibig sabihin nun, nakikita mo as teacher yung ginagawa ng anak nila. Kahit na ilang estudyante pa yung hawak mo. So, I think we really have to maintain that relationship with the parents. There.
Correct. Very well said. Sir Angelo,
Ako naman,
anong hat ba ang isusuot mo sa ano na 'to, sa recommendation na 'to?
ako ang
Bilang guro ba, bilang
ah,
magulang?
siguro ako more of sa magulang na area. Pero meron din sa guro as something that I think have I have really practiced even before pandemic, but more likely ngayong pandemic. So one, for parents, yung kahalagan ng structure, especially sometimes kasi minsan ayaw natin magbigay ng structure kasi baka yung learning, isa sa mga na ano sa akin yun eh. Parang nag-resonate sa akin kanina sinabi ni Dr. Queena na kailangan talaga ng structure even if ayaw nung bata, parang gano'n. Kasi hindi learning is not enjoyable in a way, not pleasurable that the same way as it is in mga Netflix and other things that we enjoy. But nung saya niya of overcoming, of learning, even if it's difficult, yun nung mas tumatatak sa mga bata. So, mahalaga nung structure. And especially in this particular time na lahat tayo nasa bahay, hindi lahat makalabas, especially yung mga bata. So, kailangan nung structure sa kanila. May time for playing, may time for studying, may time for rest. So, mahalaga talaga yon. Isa sa mga tinatry talaga namin yung i-practice sa mga anak namin, yung structure na certain time, itong pwedeng gawin. Certain time, ito lang. Certain time, ito lang. And we try to be consistent about it. Kahit sabihin nila na ayaw nila, pero no, we have to impose it. Kasi it becomes a habit. And then for teachers naman, I also agree with nung sinabi ni Dr. Queena na yung importance of rest. And many of the time, I know, I know for a fact kay Sir Franco, kay Sir Jamie, kay Miss Pao, ito rin yung nagre-resonate sa akin. Madalas, yung mga ideas na pumapasok sa kaagapay, yung mga ideas namin, minsan marami doon, I believe, sa rest time kami, hindi talagang, dun sa rest time, nagkakaroon ng mga aha moments. So, pwede pala to. Pwede pa natin gawin to. O meron na tayong, 2021 series for the whole year kasi na sa dami. So, hindi masamang mag-rest. Hindi masamang mag-rest kasi minsan yun yung tendency as teacher, no? Masama mag-rest kasi kailangan marami pa akong pwedeng gawin o kailangan gawin. Pero minsan that rest helps para ma-refresh at mas nung insight natin pumasok. So, yun yung sa akin, 2 takeaways.
Mag-guilty teachers. Yan ang isa sa pinaka-ano nating mga teachers, no? Nagi-guilty tayo lagi 'pag nagre-rest tayo. Yung tipong, 'pag humiga tayo, nanood tayo ng K-drama o kaya nag-binge tayo sa pagkain, nagi-guilty tayo kasi feeling natin we're not doing our work, okey?
Correct.
Pero teachers 'no, napakahalaga niyan kasi sabi nga nila 'pag pagod ka, you are more ano 'no, susceptible to mistakes, to errors, hindi ka rin nakakapag-isip ng tama, magagalitin ka din, irritable ka din. That's actually will not benefit 'no, your students, kahit po nasa Zoom lang tayo teachers, ramdam po ng mga estudyante natin 'yan. So at saka, Sir Jamby 'no, Sir Jello at Teacher Pau, our teachers deserve the rest 'no, kahit paano sabihin natin 'no, with all the work that went so far dito sa distance learning na 'to 'no, sa lahat ng modules na sinulat nila, sa lahat gusto ko yung shinare ni Sir Jello 'no, about video lessons. Sa lahat ng ano 'no, nung paggawa nila ng video lessons at saka pagiging content creator,
Oh, the
ah
ethical.
Oo, 'di ba? So, talagang do you deserve the rest. So, you have to give it to yourself then, teachers 'no. That's, 'wag nating ipagdamot, okay? At that's actually true for the parents din, Sir Jamby, Sir Jello, Teacher Pau. 'Wag din
Correct.
tayo ano, you'll also have to be forgiving to yourselves na may mga hindi talaga tayo kayang gawin. Meron talaga tayong mga hindi makokontrol. Sabi nga ni Dr. Queena ano, um, yung mga learning spaces natin, hindi tayo magkakaiba ng learning spaces. Merong mga iba diyan mayayaman, malalaki ang spaces nila, meron silang sariling kwarto per anak, pero hindi hindi yun nag-e-excel lahat. So, let's work with what we have. And again, let's ano 'no, let's embrace kung ano yung nasa harap natin. Because sabi nga ni Dr. Queen, sabi rin Teacher Pau kanina, it will all give us 'no, a lot of opportunities to grow kasi this presents us, no, we haven't faced something like this. And we hope we don't face again something like this in the future. Ayoko na, ayoko ng pandemic part 2 please, no. Sana walang sequel tong pandemic nito. Pero because of that, no, because of the uniqueness of the situation, it presents us different kinds of opportunities. Sir Teacher Pao, Sir Jello, Sir Jambi, ito palang ginagawa natin. This is a product of the pandemic, no. I doubt we would be here, or mahirap isipin, no, na we'll be doing the same something like this if wala yung pandemic. Okay, so we're not thankful for the pandemic, but we're thankful for the opportunities to grow within the pandemic. Okay. So yan, Sir Jambi, closing
Correct,
remarks
correct.
ni Sir Jambi.
Ayan, sige. Mabilis lang po, dalawang bagay. Una, susugad ko po yung yung sinabi ni Sir Franco. Ayan. I would like to quote well, when he taught this, iba yung konteksto, pero I think it applies to what we're all going through now. Yung siguro yung biggest crime na makocommit natin ngayong panahon ng pandemya is kung hindi tayo matuto because of it. Kung magkaroon man tayo ng sana hindi tayo maka-experience ng panibagong pandemya and we repeat the same mistakes, yun yung yun yung yun yung hindi maganda. So, ngayon that we have this opportunity to find out kung ano yung mga pwede natin gawin to grow and so on, gawin na natin. So, yung teacher na yun ay si Sir Franco, syempre, na naririnig ko every day pag nagtuturo siya sa kanyang klase. Tapos, pangalawang bagay po, may kinalaman din sa sinabi ni Sir Franco about rest. And this is proof na meron po tayong natututunan kahit sa Netflix. Yung latest po na pinanood ko, yung New Amsterdam, yung kanilang last episode, iko-quote ko lang yung yung sinabi nung latest doctor edition nila, he is a trauma surgeon. Tapos parang ayaw siya nung mga luma na, ng mga veteran doctors na kasi he likes to take breaks. Yung nagnanap siya, kumakain siya when everyone else is busy trying to help out everyone else. Tapos he was asked kung bakit ganun siya. Bakit gusto niya makapag-shower muna siya ng maayos? Bakit gusto niya makapag-nap siya, makakain muna siya? Kasi sabi niya, I'm a trauma surgeon. Okay? Kasi gusto ko, when that patient comes in who needs me, I want to be at 100%. So, sabi ni Sir Franco kanina, huwag tayong magdalawang isip kung kailangan natin ng rest. Kasi yung rest na yan, yung makakatulong din sa mga estudyante natin, maybe even our parents, at sa mga kasama nating teachers. Thank you very much po.